Welcome back to an instant reaction edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me is my co-host, Richie Schneiderite. Two bombshell news items dropped on Sunday right before, NFL football. First is Flip Dixon is returning to Rutgers football for 2024. Star safety who transferred in from Minnesota last year and blew me away. I expected him to be good, but I didn't expect him to be, one of the best safeties in the Big Ten. And then Rutgers got what might end up being the biggest commitment of the offseason in former Monmouth wide receiver Dymere Miller. We'll go into him a little deeper, but if you haven't read up anything about him, you're in for a pleasant surprise. So let's first talk about the guy that Rutgers fans should be very familiar with, Flip Dixon, coming back for his final season of eligibility next year. Talk about how this came together and how big of a reacquisition, I guess, it is for this defense.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, and you've said it over the past couple pods, but this is, you got to give another shout out to KTR because this is the biggest job they've done, I think, ever. This is like a huge retaining of the entire roster, basically, this offseason, entire defense, you can say. Maybe not the entire roster, but there's some offensive players in there too. It's just been huge for Greg, for the culture of the program, and just everyone in general surrounding Rutgers football specifically. They were able to keep multiple NFL guys. This is another NFL guy. He played himself into a late round draft pick, in my opinion. Now, we'll never probably know what the scouts are really said about him because he didn't really get a chance to go in front of scouts or anything like that. But this is huge. This is your number one safety, probably your top DB. If you can argue with Longerbeam, who had a pretty good season as well. But he could play himself even into a day 2 pick if he plays like that again next season. And this is phenomenal. I think he was second on the team in pass deflections. He had an interception, forced fumble. I think that was in the Maryland game, actually, the last game of the season, the forced fumble. And he hits like a ton of bricks. He plays like a linebacker, but he's a safety, and he has good coverage skills. And I think that was the biggest concern coming in because everyone was talking about, at Minnesota at least, was talking about how he might have to shift to linebacker because of his size, but I thought he moved just great at safety. So I just think it's another blunder on PJ Fleck and that Minnesota team that's honestly falling apart at this point.
Yeah, it seems like PJ Fleck's kind of losing his luster there. He had some really high highs at Minnesota, but every program he was at, it was like he built it up to a 4-year crest, which for Minnesota, I think they had an 11-win season, where they beat Penn State late in the season. I want to say November to keep their undefeated streak alive. It kind of fell apart. But he's never really stayed at a school for longer than 4 or 5 years. So you're starting to see, can he maintain this momentum? And we're not really sure. But
not if Rutgers keeps stealing his coaches.
Not if Rutgers keeps stealing his coaches and his players. Because you got, if you just look at the defense, you have Maina Hanatu, who's really good for this team. He was the captain. He was here for, I believe, 3 years. Obviously, Flip Dixon, the coaches from Kirk Soraka to Joe Harris-Simiak. And I mean, Kirk was a Greg guy before he was a PJ guy, so take that with a grain of salt. But it's been a great feeder program for Rutgers. And now you have almost everybody on defense coming back. Obviously, some guys graduated in Isaiah Aiton, Maina Hanatu, Deion Jennings, and Max Melton's entering the NFL. But almost every big impact player on defense is returning. I know we're still waiting on some official confirmation for, I think, Robert Longerbeam and Desmond Igbeneusen, but we're hearing good things.
Yeah, I don't think they're either of them. One of them might announce. I don't think Igbeneusen's going to announce. I think it's just he's coming back, full-blown fact.
Yep, and speaking defensively, where do you see them? Obviously, Flip Dixon coming back, huge news. Where do you see the staff targeting players in the transfer portal this offseason on defense?
Defensively, it's defensive tackle. Linebackers pretty much filled because Touré coming back, and he kind of filled that role when Tyrene Powell went down. And I expect him to kind of just stay at linebacker next season. Of course, pass rush packages on third down and stuff like that, they're gonna slot him down because he's that good of an edge rusher. Like we saw this year, I think it was before Powell went down. They had Touré on the outside, Aaron Lewis on the inside, and Kenny Fletcher and someone else and Renee Conga or whoever it was. It's just, you could do so much with that defensive line room. But I think linebackers pretty much set. Defensive ends are pretty much set. It's defensive tackle mostly. You might peek the portal for a cornerback just to see what's out there because you did add one added 2 last year actually technically. In Charles Monkwa, who didn't really see the field much. and Eric Rogers, who's probably cornerback 2 going into next season. But I think if you want to add some depth there, you could. But you also have some young up-and-comers like Bo Mascow. Looked pretty good in practice and before deemed ineligible by the NCAA, which another weird thing because NCAA is a mess. But
yeah,
no, I think you could target a cornerback, but you probably don't have to. But more specifically, they're going to go after a defensive tackle because you need to fill that void with, like you just said, Ahanatu's leaving due to graduation. Isaiah Aiton's graduating. So you do have a little bit of a void there. Some of the younger guys just aren't developing as quickly as you'd like. And as Greg said, he likes to use the portal to improve his roster. And this is kind of getting a defensive tackle would improve your roster. Now, who's that guy's going to be? If you asked me last week, I would have told you Anthony Johnson. Now I don't know because there's not many other offers out there, defensive tackle, for guys that are seriously considering Rutgers.
Yeah, this is kind of the first wave of entrants. So I think we're going to see this more and more in the future too, because you have the FCS kids who don't make the playoffs, kids from Ivies who can't use any kind of redshirt years, and the kids who are just like kind of checked out, like regardless of what their team does, they're leaving. That's the first wave. The second wave is bowl game kids who were planning on leaving but wanted to play through their bowl game. And the third wave is kids who leave in the spring who thought maybe I'll compete, see how it goes, and they don't necessarily find the role that they expected heading into training camp. So I think we're kind of at the end of wave one, especially with this dead period incoming.
Yeah,
I don't expect the staff to kind of rest on their laurels here, but I do expect things to quiet down significantly until the beginning of the new year. And then you might see a few more kids visit. I know you've spoken specifically about players who are not going to visit until after this semester ends. So stay tuned because there will be more kids, I'm sure, visiting in January, but I do think things are going to quiet down significantly for the next few weeks.
Yeah, like you said, post bowl game, like a lot of these kids like are leaving, so there's opening playing time, and these kids don't have film; they have practice film. And you've seen like Kamar Missouri and guys like those tweet out practice film clips that are helpful in terms of getting them more interest. But these guys are like, there's a bunch of programs. Like look at Minnesota; they're down there the third string quarterback that they had to pay to come back.
That's an unbelievable story. For those of you who aren't familiar, obviously Ethan Kaliakmanis left the program. He visited Rutgers this past weekend. Their second string quarterback also left the program, entered the portal. The third stringer, guy wasn't even planning on sticking around. He was planning on starting his life. He was graduating. Him and his fiance bought a house in Arizona. They were getting married soon. They had to basically beg him to come back and play in this bowl game. They're paying him supposedly $30,000 in NIL funds just to play in one game. Just so they don't have to run, some kind of
scout team
player or some kind of, triple option or, wildcat situation the entire game. So good for that kid. I mean, he's paying for his wedding, playing one football game. You got to hope he doesn't get hurt. Especially if he can ride off into the sunset winning a bowl game too. That's a pretty epic moment for him. Yeah. So he's got that opportunity.
But yeah, it gets these kids film. Like it gets some of these backups film, and it's like, hey, I'm going to enter the portal, but hold on, I'm not going to say it now. I'm not going to tell my coach now because he's going to tell me go screw. Like you're not playing in the bowl game. Yep. And now I can go play like maybe 20 snaps, 30 snaps. If I get like a couple good plays together, I'm going to put that on film. I'm going to tweet it out. I'm entering the portal, and there we go. I'm getting paid by some other school.
And you got to hope some of these kids take advantage of the opportunity. I know that's going to happen for a lot of Miami kids because they have, had a huge attrition factor going into the bowl. But the second half of this big news day, obviously Rutgers had 4 transfer portal kids on campus that we are aware of right now this weekend. They had Ethan Kaliakmanis, quarterback from Minnesota. They had Dino Kaliakmanis, wide receiver from Minnesota. They had Kevin Wigginton, former Michigan State offensive lineman, who's a guard, and Dymere Miller. He's a wide receiver at Monmouth. And just on the face of it, a 6-foot, 180-pound wide receiver at Monmouth doesn't really move the needle for me. But when you look into his speed, when you look into his production, everyone should be over the freaking moon about this kid coming to Rutgers. So some quick stats from him. He's led Monmouth in receiving the past 2 years. Last year he had 55 catches for 820 yards, 7 touchdowns in just 9 games. This year, he was a guy also that I targeted last year in our, hypothetical portal guys who should go after. He never entered the portal, but he was a guy who really had a good season last year. This season, though, dude just totally exploded. He had 92 catches, 1,295 yards receiving, and 9 touchdowns for Monmouth that led the FCS. He also had the second best PFF grade of any receiver out of 1,031 qualifying receivers who got a grade this year. He was second. He was only behind Malik Neighbors, who is the LSU receiver, who's probably going to go in the first round this year. Yeah. Last year, he had a really good PFF grade as well. He had an 85.8 grade, which was 14th out of over 1,000 qualifying receivers as well. The kid's a stud. Watch his film. He's a legit track guy. He went to Coatesville High School, which is the high school of Aaron and Avery Young. He ran on the track team there. They set, track star. I think they finished second in the state in the 4x100 that year. If you watch his film too, his speed just jumps off the page at you. There's a video of his production from the New Hampshire game this past season where he had 333 receiving yards, which was the most any FCS receiver had this year. And he just took 2 or 3, not even deep throws. Like, he basically had all yak on him, and he just took it to the house. He just outran everybody. I am so excited to see what he can do at this level. I think he's going to be our wide receiver 1 next year. Yeah. What kind of impact does this kind of equipment have?
I think there's no question about it. This is Jaquay Jackson on steroids, basically. I'm a little surprised he didn't have more offers in the portal, which is crazy to me. But I mean, over 2,300 yards in 2 seasons at Monmouth, and this season alone he had 1,200 of those. Like, it was just absolutely incredible season for him. Like you said, elite speed. He's a track star, track guy, great hands, and he's a really good route runner too. He's able to break off the defenders at the top of his routes. They're not all just deep balls. Like, I know everyone sees the numbers and they're like 300 yards. You're thinking he's just chucking deep balls. Like, no, he's got some yak to him too. Any service you look at, PFF, Associated Press, FCS Central, or whatever it was, he's a first team All-American for all of them in FCS. Like, he is just that good of a receiver. He was a Walter Payton finalist, which is essentially the Heisman, I believe, for the FCS level. I think he actually finished pretty low in that, but I think he was the top receiver in that group. I think he finished like 11th or 12th, but no, this kid is really, really good. And he's got connections to the team too, so that always helps. And that's probably a big reason why you landed him. Not only is he like a Coatesville, PA native, which you've done pretty well with that school between the Young brothers, and I think they actually added a walk-on event at one point from Coatesville, but I can't remember who. But yeah, no, this is like an all-time kid at Monmouth over the past couple of years. Like, he ranks among the top in their record books, not just single season, but career-wise too. This is a very big get. You need wide receiver help. There's no secret to it. Yes, Ian Strong's good. Yes, he's probably still going to start. Yes, Christian Dremel's good. Yes, he's still probably going to start, but this kid's going to start out there too with probably that duo, if I had to guess. And it just gives you another year of a guy that's legitimate. Like, I know everyone saw Jaquay Jackson's stats, but he was D2, I think. And he was good too. I just think he was a little bit misused, but hear me out. If you get a different quarterback, one that can hit the guy in the hands, this kid could be a certified stud. And he's coming to this level because he wants to increase his NFL stock. He has NFL stock. He could have left. He didn't have to go to the portal. He could have got picked up in the later rounds. If he does what he did, obviously not. I don't think he's going to do 1,200 yards at Rutgers, but could be wrong. I don't think he's going to. But my thinking is always with stuff like this, when he's at the FCS level, maybe cut that production by like 25%. You could even argue a little more, maybe. But even if he cuts it down 25%, that's still a 700-yard receiver, or even more than that, actually. It'd be like an 800-yard receiver. And when's the last time we saw one of those?
Yep,
Leonte Carew, maybe?
Yeah, no, it's been a very long time since Rutgers has had a truly high production wide receiver. It's been like Carew or Brandon Coleman. I mean, Carew is definitely the most recent, but just kind of speaking to the guys who have had huge production for Rutgers as a receiver.
Because I don't even think Bo Melton hit like the 600-yard mark.
No, Bo had a lot of flash plays, but he did. In fairness to him, he just didn't really have the pass catchers to get him the ball consistently. So
yeah. So he did. He hit the 600-yard mark in each of his last 2 seasons, but I'm talking 800. Like, when's the last time he did that? It's got to be Carew.
Yeah, I think it's Carew.
Yeah, it's insane. But this could be a very, very fun offense next year, based on the fact that they just need a couple more pieces here and there, probably a tight end, a lineman, and a quarterback that visited this weekend.
Yeah, so this is the first news to break out of the visit weekend. Do you expect any more today, or do you expect it to kind of come out in the coming days? And I don't know. It's always so tough because what you're hearing in this moment might be true, but then you might get a call in 10 minutes saying, "Hey, so and so's going to commit at 4:00."
Yeah, well, you know this better than most, and anyone that listens to our pods consistently knows this better than most. This happens all the fucking time.
Yep.
We record, and it's like, "Hey, so and so just committed," and it's like, "Cool." As of right now, though, I'm told no one else today. But strategically, Shiano's always been very strategic with these things. He likes to put out news in waves, which is smart because now instead of talking about Rutgers one day, about like, wow, Rutgers got 4 commits in one day, and then news gone, done, see you later.
Yep.
Rutgers got a commitment today from top FCS receiver. Wow, that's awesome. That's Flip Dixon returns. Cool. Let's talk about that all day long. Then the next day, it's like, oh, like we're not talking about Rutgers anymore. Oh, Ethan Cal. Oh, they got a quarterback. All right, let's talk about Rutgers again. And then, oh, you know what? Let's wait another day. Oh my God, they got who else visited? Kevin Wigginton.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, okay, wow, they got a Big Ten caliber lineman to go with that quarterback, to go with that receiver. Oh, now, then all of a sudden the next day it comes out and it's like, you know what? That's Rodino Kalikimakis. Oh, that kid's got some potential. It's pretty solid, like 5.73 star out of high school. There's 4 days worth of news, and it helps us too because we have something to talk about for 5 days.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice when it's more of a steady drip than in just a wave of information coming at you.
Yeah, of course.
So, obviously, a huge commitment. More to come in the days and weeks ahead of us. They're definitely not done in the portal. They're going to have more people get offered. They're going to have more people on campus. But that's kind of all we got for you right now. Is there anything you wanted to close on, Rich? Obviously, we had a basketball game yesterday.
Yeah,
big win.
That was cool. That was an interesting game. I actually, I think I don't know if I said it on the pod last time. Alec actually covered the game for us, but I was there, and I took my girlfriend to her first Rutgers basketball game. She's never been there before, so that was a cool experience. And I'm going to do a little bit of a write up similar to what Politi did with football from a fan experience. Got some highs, some super highs, some lows too. I'm not going to lie. Some much needed renovations. I'll tell you that much. After sitting in the 100 section, it's a lot different vantage point, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'll have that article later on in the week, and we could probably talk about it afterwards too, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comments on that one. Because
I'm sure
I was nice in some sections. I wasn't so nice in other parts, but yeah, no. Other than that, I mean, we're just kind of waiting for the bowl game. There'll be a presser later this week with Monangai. Who was it? Hold on, real quick. I have it pulled up. Monangai, Joe Harris-Simiak, so that's a cool one. Mayana Hanatu and Kirk Shiraka. That will be on Monday, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be via Zoom, so it's going to be the shitty quality, choppy quality that everyone puts out on Zoom now. Not like our podcasts that are very clear and very good. And then Shiano will also talk again on Wednesday. So I always ask you guys, if you ever have any questions for Shiano, just shoot them in our comments or shoot them on our message board. I'll ask him anything within reason. I mean, I think me and maybe one other reporter, I'll give Brian some credit, aren't afraid to ask him anything. Everyone else is just like, here's a softball, catch.
Yep.
But yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Just getting ready for some little Tommy DeVito. Hopefully, when this is out, we get the win by now. But then,
well, you also mentioned you and Brian. You guys will be in.
Oh, duh! I didn't realize that.
Florida this week, separately, obviously, but you'll both be covering the same event. Tease that a little bit, because I'm sure we'll talk about that later this week.
Yes, City of Palms Classic. So you might be on your own if anything happens Tuesday, even Wednesday potentially, depending on what time I get back. But yeah, no, City of Palms Classics this week. Technically, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know if it goes into Thursday or not. But the big game is Tuesday night, and that's what I'm going to see. I'm going to see Dylan Harper versus Ace Bailey. Now, there's some weird rules where you can't video record because NBA TV owns the rights. Watch me. I'm still doing it. Yeah, I'll find a way. I'll pull a Connor Stalions in the corner like this and just be like,
oh my God,
recording and stuff. But yeah, no, I'll figure out a way. I'll get clips and stuff. I believe, and then don't quote me on this, I believe we're allowed to interview the kids after the game. So hopefully we'll get some Ace and Dylan content. But I'm sure them going at each other one-on-one during the game is going to be fun to watch, whether whoever wins. If I had to guess, maybe the 6'10" guy with the guard skills, but that's just a guess. Dylan's still pretty good. So, it's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait. I'm very excited. Obviously, if you're not going, it's NBA TV, like I said. If you don't have it, I think there's like an option to buy it for a month or something like that, like every other service. So definitely check that out. But number 2 versus number 3 is going to be fun, and there's a bunch of other good games too. But that's the one I'm going for.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's all we got for right now. Stay tuned to your podcast feed because there could be more news coming, and then we'll hop back on and break it down even further. So for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.